We're going to work through the following scenarios of giving different fluid therapies based on patient needs. So the first one we have is calculate the drip rate for a 6-year-old domestic short hair going under a routine dental. So we're using our surgical or anesthesia fluid rate here. She weighs 3.4 kilos and is otherwise healthy. We don't have a fluid pump, so we will be using a macro drip set to deliver the fluids in absence of that pump. So the first thing we need to do is just set up her basic fluid rate for her surgical procedure or anesthetic procedure. So she is 3.4 kilos. And if you'll remember, our surgical rate or anesthetic rate of fluid is simple, 10 mils per kilo. So that's 34 mils an hour what this cat is going to receive during the dental. But because we don't have a fluid pump, we need to go back to our 4-step drip rate calculation. Step 1 being figure out the mils per hour. And step 2 is dividing that by 60 minutes and then timesing by our drip set. And then finally dividing by 60 seconds. So let's go ahead and set that up. So we'll have 34 mils an hour. First is divide by 60 minutes. And that's going to give us 0.56 mils per minute. And then we are using a macro drip set. So that's going to be our next step is to times by the drip set. So we have 0.56 mils per minute. We're going to times that by our 10 drop per ml drip set. And that gives us 5.6 drops in a minute's time. Very last step is 5.6 drops in a minute. Divide by 60 seconds, and that's going to give us 0.09 drops per second. Again, we can't really watch for a fraction of a drop, so we have to times this. We're going to do by 10 on each side, so we'll have about 1 drop in 10 seconds time. And that's going to give us a rate of fluid delivery that is equal to 34 mils an hour. Okay, number 2, we have a 15-week-old 6-kilo puppy who's been admitted with vomiting and diarrhea that have been present for 2 days. The puppy is 6% dehydrated, which needs to be corrected over 24 hours. What amount of fluids will be given to this puppy for the first 24? What is the amount of fluids per hour? Without a pump, you will deliver fluids via 20 drop per mil micro drip set. So we've got a couple different steps here, and there's no need to freak out. We're going to do this step by step. So the first thing that we need to figure out is just what is this puppy's maintenance fluids? Because he is a puppy, they tell us in the problem, we're going to use 4 mils per kilo per hour for his fluid rate. So first we're going to set up his weight, 6.8 kilo, times 4 mil per kilo per hour. And that's going to give us 27.2 mils an hour. That's just basic maintenance. But the problem told us that he's also dehydrated. So we need to figure out the replacement amount of fluids for his dehydration. So in order to do that, we again take the patient's weight and times that by the percentage in decimal form of dehydration. And then we're going to times that by 1,000. And that gives us our 408 mils of a dehydration or hydration deficit. So we need to, in a 24-hour period of time, figure out what his maintenance is, because that's our first question. What amount of fluids will be given to this puppy for the first 24 hours? So we have our mil per hour set up here. So we're just simply going to set up another problem for ourselves of 27.2 mils per hour times 24, right? To give us our daily total. And that's going to be 652.8 ml. And to that, we can add our 408 mil dehydration And that's going to give us our total amount of 1,060 ml in a day. If we divide this by 24, that'll give us then 44 mils an hour for his rate of maintenance plus dehydration. But we can't stop there. We have one last step in this problem, and that's because we don't have a pump. We're using a 20 drop per mil micro drip set. So at this point, we need to just complete our problem here with our 44 mils an hour. So 44 mils an hour. Remember to divide by 60 for your minutes. That's 0.7 mil per minute. We're using a 20 drop per ml set. So we'll times our mil per minute times our drops per set. And that gives us 14.6 drops in a minute. And we're going to divide that one more time by 60 to get to our seconds. So 14.6 drops per minute, divide by 60 seconds. And that gives us about 0.24 drops a second. If you'll remember from the other fluid drip rates we've done and just the one above, we can't stop with a fraction number of drops. We have to be able to times this by something in order to get this to a whole number. So in this case, this is close enough to 25. We're going to times both sides here by 4. So that will give us 1 drop in 4 seconds, or every 4 seconds. Okay, and that would be our other answer. Okay, so we answered everything. What's the amount of fluid for the first 24 hours? That was our 1060 mil per day. What is the amount of fluids per hour? That's our 44 mils per hour. And then our drip set, or drip rate rather, is 1 drop in 4 seconds time. Okay, number 3, a dog's admitted to the hospital hit by car. He's in shock. Dog weighs 35 kilos and needs an immediate bolus of fluids. We're ordered to give 10 mil per kilo over 10 minutes. We only have a micro drip set. What would the drip rate be, and what can we do to make sure he gets all of this? So this is a multi-step, but it's not too bad. Again, just take the information that we have been given. So step number 1 is to take his weight, 35 kilos, by the order that we were given, so 10 mils per kilo. Okay, and that's going to come out to 350 ml. Okay, but we need to be able to figure out, because that was an order in 10 minutes, we need to be able to figure out how much of this is going to be given in an hour. Because if we did have a pump, we'd need to know what amount per hour to type in. But also without a pump in the drip set, we have to have the mil per hour. So step number 2 is to get us to an hour. So to get to an hour, you can imagine, we need to take the 350 ml and times it by 6, because there's 6 10-minute blocks in an hour's time. And that's going to give us 2,100 mils per hour. Okay. And at this point, we can start breaking it down just like every other fluid drip problem we've done. So 2,100 mils per hour divided by 60 minutes. That's going to be 35 mil per minute. And it looks like we have a micro drip set. We're going to say it's a 20 drop set. So we're going to times 35 mil per minute times 20 drop per ml. That gives us 700 drops a minute. Now, we've joked before you can stop here, but there's no way you can count 700 drops. That's just going to be dropping out way too quickly. And then our last step is to get it into seconds. So 700 drops per minute, divide by 60 seconds. And that's going to give us about 11.6 drops a second. Now, again, this is a whole number. This is a whole number, right? We can stop here. And this is going to be hard to count, though, because going this quickly, those drops are all going to run together, and that's a good thing. Whenever we have a patient who's in shock, it's important that we're giving this fluid, this bolus amount of fluid in a quick amount of time, and then reassessing our patient. So the last question, some of the things we could do to make sure he gets this volume in the time required: squeeze the bag, put the bag in a pressure bag, use an infusion pump, stand up high from the patient and let gravity help you, are just a couple ways to answer that question. Okay, and then lastly, we have a 4.7 kilo, 9-year-old male neuter domestic short hair who's been admitted with a severely distended and painful bladder due to a urethral obstruction. The cat's 10% dehydrated, has hyperkalemia, and is depressed. He needs to receive a bolus of 25 mils per kilo per 30 minutes, and we actually have a pump this time. Thank you, Lord. So we just set this up really pretty basically. So 4.7 kilos times the amount that we're trying to give, which is 25 mil per kilo per 30 minute. And so that's going to be 117.5 mil over 30 minute. But remember, our pumps, we have to have an hour to type it into our pumps. So we're just simply going to times this by 2. And that's going to give us 235 mils an hour. So we can go boop, boop, boop that in to the pump, but we're not done. We have his dehydration to worry about. But as far as shock dose goes, we are going to probably just go ahead and give him this rate to start and then add in our dehydration once he's been stabilized. Remember, with cats, we don't want to accidentally overhydrate. So real quick, we'll figure out his 10% dehydration as well. So again, he's 4.7 kilo cat, and he was 10% dehydrated. So again, in decimal form. And then we always times that by 1,000 because our kilo equals 1 liter of fluid. That's going to give us 470 mils of dehydration. And this again can be added to our total once the patient's been stabilized. But now also, this is something that we're giving over 24 hours, right? So our 470 mils of dehydration will be given and replaced over the full day.